All right, everybody, welcome back to the latest installation of our Lead Vision podcast, where we talk about all things digital marketing and lead generation. Today, we're going to be talking about source mixes and what that means for a business like Lead Vision. And got a good group of people here today that I'm going to let introduce themselves.
Alex, our VP of Revenue Generation.
I'm Greg, Digital Marketing Manager.
I'm Jordyn, our Affiliate Manager.
I'm Evan, Strategic Partnership Manager.
I'm David, our CEO.
Awesome. All right. The whole team is here for a great conversation. And maybe just to kick things off with the basics and the obvious, what do we mean when we're talking about source mix when it comes to lead vision and lead generation?
I think it's just we generate these referrals, these leads from a number of different avenues. So it's just a mix of those different sources.
Can we give some examples?
Yeah, it's a good combination of a good source mix is a combination of different marketing channels and partnerships to bring in the best possible leads, both quality-wise and cost-wise.
Which would include things like search.
There you go.
There it is.
That's what I'm looking
Search,
for.
social. It can be like partnership leads. All different channels. SMS, email, programmatic display, you name it.
Awesome. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, I think to simplify it, it's where we get our leads from.
There you go. There you go. All right. Well, to that end, when would a company like ours, or even some of our clients, the people that are reaching out to customers to work on these leads, when should they be considering source mix as part of their marketing operations?
Immediately. I think that's one of the first things that you have to look at. Obviously, where the leads come from. It's our business. So.
Yeah, I think as a lead gen company, like Jordyn said, you have to think about that ASAP as soon as possible, right? It's one of the first things you need to get down. And I think the same thing goes for some of our clients, right? A home improvement company. Some of these largest, like home remodelers in the country, they don't necessarily have one channel that they rely on. They have SEO, search, partners as well, right? They don't stick to necessarily one lead gen partner. A lot of these guys have 25, 30 different partners out there. So the answer is yesterday.
Fair enough.
Yes.
Yeah, and maybe just to jump ahead in the queue of these questions a little bit, why is it so important to have a source mix? I think some of it might be self-explanatory, but it's obviously, as you mentioned, there's some people working with 28 different sources. Why do they do that?
Yeah, I mean, hedging your bets, right? It could be, let's say, a company relies strictly on search, or it could be social media. It could be amazing for the first 3 months, but maybe some legislation comes in and changes the whole atmosphere of that. You can't be scrambling on the spot. You have to have backup plans for all this stuff.
Yeah, to have any kind of consistency in volume, right? I mean, sources are going to go up, they're going to go down. For search, the prices are going to elevate and then they're going to drop. There's all inconsistencies that are going to happen. Then there's also quality concerns, right? So at the end of the day, if I were one of these companies buying our leads, I would want to just meet certain expectations. Now, however I do that is, it's going to be a matter of like how much do I want to spend, what kind of quality I need, all sorts of things.
So really, it's a risk to be overly dependent on one source.
100%, absolutely.
In terms of source, how do we look at capping our sources? Because our partners have budgets every month, and we got to make sure that we're providing them the optimal mix of our sources. So how do we look at capping, let's say, even if a source is performing really well?
Yeah, so we definitely want to be mindful of our customers' budget. I think that's the first thing to take into account. We don't want to send them a ton of leads from one source and just like completely blow through their budget, and then we don't really have any optimizations that we can make. So I think really we want to look at what sources we have that are performing really well. Obviously, we want to give the most of that source.
But at the same time, too, you have to maximize profitability, too. So the two things have to be true at the same time. Number one, they have to have the quality to meet their KPIs, right?
Yeah.
And then secondly, we have to build a profit in it for ourselves. So sometimes that's going to be Jordyn and Evan messing with bids or doing things like that to elevate our profitability while at the same time going for the highest quality sources. And into that question, if you throw things like search and social, again, you're dealing with a volatile quality mix So you have to be monitoring these things all the time, which is what these guys do when they're looking at disposition reports. They're looking at, are we meeting our KPIs? If so, okay, what's our profitability look like? Well, it doesn't look great. Okay, well, let's modify our bids and see if it influences the volume in a negative way. So I just think there's a balance there.
Yeah, and look, to that point, I think there's probably a widely held belief in digital marketing that if you have a source that has a ton of scale, it's likely that the quality of that source is going to be lower, and then smaller scale equals better performance. So how do we look at balancing those two things on our end?
I mean, I think David kind of nailed it, right? Any source that we've got that is successful, or we're seeing our partners or our clients are seeing success with those leads, we want to get as much of that to them as possible, right? Whether it's something that's coming from in-house or it's a partner that we work with. But at the end of the day, there's only so much you can do with it. So you have to have a number of different avenues that you can kind of get these different leads from, and just keep your eye on all of them, right? If something's doing really well, okay, we'll bid higher. We'll try to get more of that to our clients. If it's not, we'll limit it some or just nix it completely, and then give the rest of that to some of those higher performing sources.
Well, Greg and I were just having a conversation about this morning too. In one of our campaigns, we're trying to manage like a social versus search type situation because the quality is slightly different. One is more consistent than the other. But then again, with social, you could get a lot of bang for your buck, right? There's a lot of volume you can extract from that. So
It goes back to that diversity of, and like hedging your bets too, in a way too, right? If you have a diversity between your lead mix and you measure that against like KPIs or benchmarks of what you're looking for, that's kind of the only way you can determine whether or not to cap something. Because if we're hitting our metrics that we want to hit for a certain source per se, then that's where it needs to be. We can maybe bid that up a little bit, but there's usually a sweet spot with that margin to stay both hitting benchmarks and profitability.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that like we sell leads on a CPL, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to make a profit off of every lead. There are definitely sources we have where we're eating profit. We're cutting into the market just to make sure that we're hitting these KPIs. So if that's the case and we're meeting the metrics of our partners, we're going to have to find that scalable source, like you mentioned earlier, to kind of balance it out, right?
So is it safe to say then that when working with source mix, you want to look at it individual source by source, but then also in the campaign as a whole? Because you mentioned that we do have some sources where we might be less profitable or unprofitable, and yet we still are sourcing leads from them in order to make the whole campaign perform well. So is that something that our team has to look at regularly and make sure we're constantly keeping track of?
Yeah,
yes and yes.
definitely agree.
100%.
I think you want to have a channel perform as best as it possibly can, but you also have to look at the big picture. So you can maybe take a hit on one channel as opposed to another, right? If one has more volume, one has better quality, that will kind of equal out. But if you don't look at the campaign as a whole, then you're not going to be able to get that.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing with like our affiliate partners. And when I'm looking at disposition reports, I'm looking at our customers' individual reporting, what works for them, because they're all different. One source might work for somebody, it might not work for somebody else. But then I'm also looking at all of our sources all together just to figure out, okay, so maybe this source works for this partner, not working for somebody else, but we have so many different partners, so you really just have to look at everything on a larger scale too.
Okay, well that's awesome. Look, I think the other thing probably that we want to talk about is just source mix. It's a very vague, broad term that can mean a ton of different things. I know when it comes to lead vision, we almost bucket it into two different camps. There's the owned and operated stuff, which is the websites that we run and the marketing campaigns that drive traffic to that website. But then there's also our affiliate partnerships, which is just a very small, less than 10 network publisher or lead aggregator companies where we're purchasing their leads. And I know that's very common in the space with a lot of companies similar to Lead Vision. How do we look at balancing our owned and operated volume with the third-party leads we purchase? And do you think there's a right mix, Do you think there's an important, threshold we shouldn't go above with either of those, or how do we look at that?
I think it's going back. I hate to not give you a specific answer, but it goes back to the individual partner, right? There's so many variables when it comes to this. We could be talking about like forklifts, where I would say 90% of what we generate is owned and operated from our in-house campaigns. Greg here is kind of spearheading, but certain other verticals that we're just now getting into, let's say siding, for instance, we don't necessarily have the geography to be able to nationally advertise, right? So when it comes to these newer verticals, we definitely have to lean on our affiliate partners to give us the scalability and the leads to start, right? Now, the flip side of that is we don't have too much control over what our affiliates do, and I would like to preface that if we ever buy leads when the circumstance calls for it, we're making sure that we're only buying from their owned and operated properties, right? So we do our due diligence when onboarding these partners, but to circle back, I think it really just depends on the situation, the vertical, the partner, a lot of variables, right?
Yeah, I think Evan nailed it, right? It's if we've got something that's brand new and we want to stand that up, there's either, okay, we need to onboard a handful of kind of anchor buyers right out of the gate so that we've got the buying power and the bidding power to run our own campaigns, or we can lean on those aggregators, right? That we're not their only client. They've got a lot, so it's almost like being able to turn on that faucet to start. But yeah, I mean, sometimes that one mix, you could have 50-50 of our O&O and our partnerships that we work with and get leads from, and it works great. Sometimes it's more of our own stuff works better. It just, again, depends on the vertical, the industry, sometimes the buyers.
I agree. There's no formula.
Yeah.
If you're looking to get to market fast, you have to work with partners.
Yeah.
Because if we sign one client or two clients and we got, 20 counties covered, you can't run a search campaign toward it. You're not
Yeah.
going to get any leads, first of all, and even if you did, they're going to be $100 a piece, and there's no profit whatsoever.
It's
So-
it's an art, not a science.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
Well, to that end, art can get very messy, and I think there are so many different sources out there. And well, we work with a smaller list of affiliates, for example, and are very focused on the channels we're in. Others can work with tons and like up to thousands of different sources, right? Confusing, hard to keep track of. What are some of the tools out there that we as a business use, but others can use if they're interested in learning more to help keep track of all this stuff, make sure they can manage it, scale things up and down easily, but also quickly get a view of how things are performing?
For our owned and operated stuff, we use a good slew of tools depending on what campaign type or what channel we're using. So like, for example, any type of Google related activity, we have analytics, we have Search Console, we have tools that measure Google Ads performance, measure keyword performance. So we kind of have a good suite there to track that, and then we built it all into a dashboard that reports back to us. So we have a comprehensive picture of all the channels together as a whole, like we were talking about before, and also kind of on an individual basis as well.
On the outside of that, I'm sure Jordyn and Evan obviously can speak to this a lot too, but when we're working with any of our buyers or our clients, feedback is really the biggest tool that we can use. And sometimes it's kind of like pulling teeth to get that. The home services industry is a lot easier to get those disposition reports, but feedback letting us know what's working well, what's not working, where can we scale. I think those are the biggest things. I'm sure Jordyn, you could add to that. but-
Exactly, we don't know what we don't know. So like, if we're not getting feedback, then we don't know what changes we need to make. We don't know if things are working, if they're not working. But I mean, as far as tools that I use to manage that feedback, Excel, sheets. I feel like I've become such a pro since I started working here, and just getting like really familiar with like using formulas makes your life so much easier.
And you remember too, we were just talking about this the other day, where you have a client who is giving us some data, but not all the KPIs, not all the data. Let's say.
Yeah.
So that makes things really, really complicated because they can't make any decisions unless they know what those numbers are, right?
Yeah, and you got to know what the end goal is for that buyer. And some of them, it might be, in our in our machinery or our equipment verticals, it might be how much am I spending versus how much am I bringing back as far as the return on investment. For home services clients, it might be a number of different benchmarks that you've got to hit. It could be things like the appointment rate, it could be the cost of marketing, it could be just, sometimes we'll have people throw stuff at us about like finance declines and things like that. All of that information that they can give us, as long as we have an understanding of where we need to be before a campaign starts, then Jordyn or anybody that's working with these clients can get a good understanding of what they're seeing, as long as we're getting that feedback and optimize to hopefully get them where they want to be. So,
Agreed. I think there's a fear among clients that we work with that sharing data and performance is important, but not to overshare just because there are negotiations to go into these things and there is back and forth. And I think that kind of can sell partnerships short a little bit and limit their ability to perform well because we're only as good as the information we get, and without a full view, we don't know how to properly make decisions in some areas. And so that's really where, if you want the best performance, then share everything. So I really agree with what everyone is.
Well, really, it's a partnership.
Yeah.
The more information you give us, the more effective we can
Yeah. Better together.
Yep.
Well, that's great. I think to that end, we've been doing this for a while. We obviously have a pretty good sense of how channels perform, and obviously, as all of you have kind of stated, it varies from partner to partner and source or category to category. On the whole, what have we seen perform best?
What's the definition of perform? Does that mean
Getting the highest
Quality?
rate of performance for our partners and hitting their KPIs.
okay, so quality?
Yeah.
I think it's not just search anymore, because some of the partners you guys get, and some of the other partners that we've had here actually perform great.
Yeah.
So I can't say one source performs better than the other. I think there's moments where search is going to be the thing. Then there's others where some of the partners you all have signed perform fantastic. So I don't think it's one source.
I mean, you're totally right, because if we talk about it all the time, because performance on our end does, obviously quality matters, but also profitability matters.
Correct.
I think that's a huge thing, because if we just sign somebody up for strictly search leads, the intent is going to be high, right? We're hoping that those are going to convert well, but it's also going to be incredibly expensive for us, which means either we lose money or we have to charge an exorbitant amount of money for those leads, and then their return is much less. But even some of these partners that we're working with, they focus on things like, as Evan's mentioned, we do a lot of due diligence to make sure they're doing the things they need to do correctly. A lot of that is search. Some of it's social. Some of it's display. And some people are just better than other partners at certain things, right? Whether it be like if they've got a big organic presence, or SEO is a big part of their play, whether it's search, social, whatever it might be, everyone's kind of got their niche, right?
Yeah, I think it's important to note that it's an ever-changing industry too, right? So going back to the original question, why is source diversification so important? It's never going to be the same thing for, like, let's say 2 or 3 years, right? It could change in an instant. That's the key to be able to pivot on the spot, right?
I actually love that as our kind of closing off point for that question, because I think it leans really well into my next question here, just with how volatile things are and how they can change so quickly.
Yeah.
What do the next 3 or 5 years looks like? AI is anything
Disruption.
anyone is talking about, and depending on who you talk to, it's gonna blow everything up and change it, or it's overhyped. Like, what do we think the source landscape's gonna look like in the future?
Like organics becoming less, I don't want to say less relevant, but I would say volume-wise, I don't think it's going to keep expanding. I think AI is going to disrupt everything. And right now, I think the average person, tell me, but I feel like the average person is using AI for the most basic of tasks. Like, nobody really knows what its true potential is going to be 3 or 5 years from now. But like, for example, are they going to do paid ads? Or what are they going to do? Like, how can we generate leads through there? Is it just somebody going to be searching, saying, hey, I want to buy a used forklift, or looking at my bathroom remodeled, or is it going to be more intentional? Is it going to suggest things? Like, I don't even know what that's going to look like. Social, I think quality is always going to be sort of a concern, so you're going to be chasing like some sort of verification techniques to get that quality up to where it needs to be. Bottom line, I think 3 to 5 years, everything changes.
Yeah, I think the landscape is definitely going to change in terms of like back to the SEO point. I think when people use search engines now, they don't even realize that they're getting AI results. So when people type something in, they'll get a good amount of information from AI, and that's just whether it's directly answering your question, whether it's subtly suggesting a product, but it's essentially changing the layout of the search results with AI, and that's ever changing.
I mean, everything changes so quickly in this industry. It'll be interesting to see it.
So would you say it's safe to say that with just so much uncertainty, teams like Lead Vision, like other lead aggregation companies, and even the clients we work with, being flexible and I hate to bring in a marketing buzzword here, but nimble is going to be really important.
Exactly, right. Like the only thing we know for certain is that it's going to change, right? Like Greg said, it's not even necessarily up to the consumer. If you go to that Google example, you type in best remodelers in the Charlotte area, before you even get to search results, they're going to give you a summary of what AI found. So it's definitely gonna change, and the only thing we can do is be prepared, right?
And adjust with it too.
Yeah.
Right. And being nimble, like you said, that allows us to test out all these different things, find new ways to get featured, and find new ways to get people who are searching for the service that you're offering your information. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting, and I think we're definitely excited about it because a change in landscape could be drastic, right? We could have a whole lot more leads, bunch of different sources. So it's going to be interesting, and we're definitely on the front end of it, using all the tools at our disposal and all the AI at our disposal to
Agreed.
generate more leads. So it's going to be fun.
I think search needed a competitor. I think it needed a reality check. I think AI is going to take it over.
Well, hey, that is all the questions I kind of had for this group. Any parting thoughts of wisdom from anybody here, this topic or otherwise?
No, I think that, if you're watching this and you're interested in looking at, a number of different sources for your own lead generation efforts, or you're even looking to buy leads from someone, just understand that there's a lot of different avenues that are out there, and you have to be open and willing to trying different things to see what works, right? And don't just try it once. Really kind of get your feet wet and work through it. Either have a team that can optimize with you, or work with a partner that is going to, understand your KPIs and metrics and work with you to get there.
And give Lead Vision a call.
The other thing I'd say, going back to your nimble point though, is that if we were contacted by a company who, and I'll give a real example. I was contacted once about this company that does these like giant umbrellas. Do you remember this?
Oh, yeah.
Giant umbrellas. And they were wondering if we could generate leads for them. I know it sounds ridiculous because it has nothing to do with what we do, but we'll do it. I mean, if somebody came to us and said, hey, can you advertise for this? As long as it met certain parameters and the KPIs were reasonable, it's something we would do. So if there's a company out there that wants us to generate leads, leadvision.com.
Anyone else?
That was great.
Yeah.
All right, I
Of course,
love
you're
it.
so wise.
All right, well, with that incredible wisdom to close things out, appreciate everybody joining us. Obviously, you can find us on LinkedIn. We have a lot of other content like this that's being posted all the time. Leadvision.com, as David referenced, is our website. If you're interested in learning more about lead generation, think there are ways that we could be helpful to you all, we are always here to chat. And until next time, thanks everybody for your time and good discussion.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, Dad.
It's a wrap.